Okay, so here's what I want my loop to do. I want my loop to print on the screen every integer from num1 to num2 inclusive. All right, inclusive. So including the actual values themselves. So for instance, the user says 1 and 10. Then I would want to print on the screen 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay? Or the user might put 4 and 8. Then I got to print 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I don't know what numbers they're going to give me. So I don't know if I'm going to need 10 print statements or 5. I might need 100 or 1,000. I have no idea ahead of time. So I can't just write a bunch of print statements because I don't know how many I'm going to need. Okay, so this is where the loop comes in. Okay, the loop can handle this task. Now, remember what we've been talking about while loops. While loops are just like if statements. Just imagine basically changing the word if to say while. Okay? And the only difference is if an if statement evaluates true, it runs the code once and only once. A while loop runs the code and then checks again to see if it's still true, potentially runs the code again, checks again, and then again and again. It can go on forever. Okay? So what I want to happen, remember, is I want to print these numbers. And for the purpose of this task, we're going to assume num1 is less than num2, just to make this easy on ourselves. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say print num1, because that's like the first thing I would want to happen, right? So like if the user types in 1 for num1 and 10 for num2, I just want to print 1. And then the next thing I would want is I'd want to print 2, and then 3, and so on and so on. And I wouldn't want to print 11. I'd want to quit before that happened. So here's how I'm going to get this to work. I'm going to take num1 and I'm going to increment it. And then that way, because like I said, this code can repeat itself. If it prints 1 the first time, then the next time through it will print 2. And the next time through it will print 3. And so on and so on and so on. Now, I'm missing something in my while loop, though, and this something is very important. It's called the control expression. The control expression must be Boolean, okay? No option about that. You got to put some type of Boolean expression there. You could just write the word true if you wanted, or you could write the word false. That's not what we usually do. But you got to have something in there that's Boolean. And that control expression, just like we saw with the if statement, if true, run the code. If false, don't run the code. The difference is it has the ability to run more than once. As long as it's true, it keeps running. The minute it becomes false, it exits the loop. Okay? So I'm going to put a piece of code here that's a Boolean. I want it to initially be true, or else nothing would happen. And I want it to eventually become false. All right, so here's what I'm going to write. I'm going to write num1 is less than or equal to num2. And my thinking is that as num1 continues to increment, eventually it's going to become larger than num2, and that's when I want to stop printing anything. Okay, so let's give this a test. Looks like it compiles just fine. All right, and let's run it. And let's just, that example I mentioned, let's put in 1 and 10. Okay? Just like we wanted, it printed every integer from 1 to 10. All right? Well, what if we tried some other numbers? Let's put, say, 4, and let's put 8. Okay? Prints 4 through 8. Now, unfortunately, the way I wrote my code wasn't great. Remember I said I was going to assume that the first number was smaller than the second number. If I reversed it, it's not going to give me an error message. It's just like an if statement. If an if statement evaluates false, then you skip all of the remaining code. And the same thing would happen here. Basically, when I hit enter, nothing happened. My program just ended. Because at that point, it skipped all of this code, it hit the closing brace, and it just ended. The main method was over at that point. So it didn't cause like an error or anything weird. It just terminated itself. Okay? Any questions here?